What if the biggest opportunities in your business are hiding in plain sight, and the only thing standing between where you are and where you could be is the speed at which you can identify and act on them? Today's episode is going to challenge the way you think about clarity, decision-making, what's actually possible inside of your company. Welcome back to another episode of the Vital Wealth Strategist podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan. Today, I'm joined by Stacey Bullman, whose work has helped over 1,000 companies navigate complexity and create results that most entrepreneurs don't even know are achievable. She brings a decade of experience from I'mNotMadAtYou.com, where their team has helped businesses in everything from robotics and construction to marketing and pet care move faster, think smarter, and build futures that truly last. Their approach is all about ruthless practicality, fast frameworks, and tools like the wheel assessment that spotlight problems and opportunities at speed. We're talking about real outcomes like 700% pipeline growth in a single year, 44% profit lift in a month, and 645% net income growth in 12 months. In this conversation, you're going to hear a level of candor and clarity that most business owners never get access to. If you want to future-proof your business, avoid costly mistakes, and learn how to operate confidently in a world where the playbook seems to change every night, this is an episode you're going to want to listen all the way through. And as you're listening, if you're ready to start building out your tax and wealth strategy with the same level of intention and practicality, head over to vitalstrategies.com/tax. You'll find tools and guidance designed to help you take control of your numbers and create a plan that actually supports your vision. I'll mention it again later, but that's vitalstrategies.com/tax. If you've been enjoying the show, it would mean a lot if you took a moment to leave a review. It helps get this information in front of more entrepreneurs who need it. Let's dive in. Stacey Bullman, I'm excited to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us. I think this is going to be a fantastic conversation about making sure the stories we're telling really matter. So thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us.
So I'm looking at the business landscape, and it just seems like it's shifting fast. Markets, technology, competition's evolving. Seems like weekly, especially with AI. Entrepreneurs are overwhelmed with the complexity and noise and playbooks that seem to be outdated the moment they're written. They don't know which fires to put out, which opportunities to chase, or which hidden weaknesses they should are dragging them down. So then I think about the internal problems that the decision maker is dealing with, and there's the weight of just being the sole decision maker is hard. They're tired, they're overthinking, there's slow progress, and so they just can't see the root issues clearly or quickly. They want simplicity and speed, but all they're getting is more information, which just makes it hard. And then philosophically, I just think about the entrepreneur. They shouldn't have to guess their way through growing their business. Business should reward clarity and not be creating chaos. So they should have a fast, honest way to uncover what's working, fix what isn't, and build a company that lasts. So I'm looking forward to getting into all of these things today. If it's okay, can you give us a little bit of your background so we can talk about how we're going to solve all those problems we just identified?
I spent 25 years in corporate America learning some of the world's finest systems and processes around business development, sales, marketing, strategy, accounting, finance, and took that, as we say, 80,000 hours of experience, and almost 10 years ago started the company with the desire to make people and companies better. And in a vein, my company's name is I'm Not Mad at You. And on some levels, I think I was mad at corporate America in the area where they were trying to improve. Oftentimes they did bring in consultants. They did have people come onto our campuses, shall you say, and try to best understand the company or the organization. And it almost always fell flat with the actual, should you call it field agents, the ones that were doing the blocking and tackling out in the field. It was usually for the C-suite executives, and oftentimes it didn't ring true for those of us that were doing a lot of the work out in the field. So I probably, in some levels, had a lot of frustration through the years watching that occur, and felt that I could do the same thing and bring some of the systems and processes from corporate America to small and mid-sized businesses who do not have the luxury of learning. As you just said, as an entrepreneur, you are juggling so many balls, and you might have opened or started a construction company, but the balls you're actually oftentimes juggling are around your books, your taxes, as we might say, your year-end taxes and how to improve there, or employees or HR challenges or staffing issues, supply and chain challenges, right? So supply chain
Yeah.
challenges. So oftentimes the basic blocking and tackling of a business isn't what you get to spend a lot of your time on as the entrepreneur. So they
Yeah.
can, bring that to light and help them in the small to mid-sized business use some of those processes and strategies that the big companies were using and get better.
Yeah, I think that's great. And as entrepreneurs, I think it can be an awfully lonely world out there. You sometimes you look around at your friends; they don't, if they're not owning and running a business, it's like, man, this is challenging. And so having that, we'll call it CEO sounding board, and I know that's something that you do a lot of is critical. Like having somebody that's been there, done that, and I just look at some of the results that you've produced. You've seen tremendous growth with net income in some businesses, sales. Um, you know, just incredible from a productivity point of view, profit margin. It's so interesting when you have somebody that can come look at the business with fresh eyes. Because oftentimes the entrepreneur is so busy in the business that they can't see the forest for the trees,
Right.
and it's hard to go, oh, hey, if you just made this one little adjustment over here, man, it would be tremendous for your business. And so, yeah, can you talk to us a little bit more about what that looks like? This regular accountability and communication.
Yep. Well, I mean, with our soundboarding program, I think we hold a mirror up to the CEOs. And as opposed to like what you mentioned before, a lot of people as an entrepreneur can be lonely. They've got a circle of friends or a circle of people that maybe they're trusting to have conversations with. And that's not your best strategy. First, people will support you and they oftentimes believe in you, but do they really understand your profit and loss statements? Do they understand the inner workings of your business? Can they get 30,000 feet above and have some objectivity?
Hmm.
Oftentimes leaders, as you said, they have blind spots. They're busy blocking and tackling. They're running the day-to-day business. They don't have the ability to sometimes rise above the mud, the muck of the day-to-day business. And as you just said, they're inside the business. So one of the first blog articles we wrote was about leaders having blind spots and getting in the daily
Hmm.
business. And that's where you have to learn. We have a formula that we talk about for return on investment for CEOs. And we say, if your company is $1 million company, divide that by 2,080 hours. Right? That
Hmm.
comes out to be like $450. I'm not certain. You could check my math on that. But if it
Yeah.
comes out to $450 an hour, what I tell the leader of a company to do is do not touch any work or activity that is not netting you $450 an hour. If you
Hmm.
are doing something that you can pay somebody $25 to do, you're not really being responsible as the leader of this company. And you break these things out into numbers, critical numbers for them to constantly have, to be a soundboard for them to recognize and to make it easy, right? Like
Hmm.
you're busy as a soundboard. I'm not trying to make the life for my clients harder, and I'm not trying to have a system or process that's harder. I want systems and
Hmm.
processes that integrate in the everyday
Yeah.
business and that they find to be simple and executable, because otherwise, if it isn't, you're wasting your time and spinning your wheels.
Yeah, I love this. And one of the things that I found interesting about just, I'll call it your consulting and strategy in general, is we'll call it the wheel
Yeah.
assessment. Because I think
Yeah.
it's so good to figure out where we're
Yeah.
at on the map, right? Before we start fixing
Yep.
things. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yep. It was a tool. I didn't invent it. It's from Mind Tools, I think from the 50s. And it was part of a life coaching exercise and assessing how happy a human being was. And when I
Mhm.
learned about this tool, I liked it. I was like, this is very cool on a personal level. But I wanted to stretch that model and see if I couldn't sort of tweak it to make it accessible for businesses and companies, services and products. So the wheel essentially uses 8 attributes to assess anything: a company, a manager, a leader, a product, a service. And the company can dictate those 8 attributes. It's not nothing set in stone. And we essentially take this wheel and we exercise it throughout the organization with the leaders, with the people inside the organization that might be the blocking and tackling, the administrative people, to really understand, is leadership the problem for this company? And I can tell you in the
Mhm.
10 years, most of the time, leadership is the problem, which is an interesting thing that the leader has brought in a consultant, opened up the organization to be critically assessed, very critically
Yeah.
assessed. and then allowed for the assessment to come back and ultimately be pointing the finger right back at the leader. Those are the
Hmm.
leaders that we make the biggest difference with. Those are the, leaders that are willing to open themselves up to that objectivity. The answers are almost always within the organization, but sometimes, as you just said, the leader's not going to have all of them. And
Hmm.
it's sometimes hard to engage with your employees one-on-one as a leader to get that same information, right? I come in as an
Yeah.
outsider. I sit down with an individual for 1 hour. They generally will tell me everything. They're never going to tell their leader or their boss that. And as I tell employees and leaders, you're not in the best interest to be completely and totally honest with each other. Neither one of you
Hmm.
are.
Right.
So I say oftentimes from an outside perspective, it's much easier for us to get that information. And the other thing is we're able to bow tie it nicely for the leader for it to make sense to the C-suite people, whereas oftentimes your middle management or sometimes your administrative people have great ideas. They don't know how to articulate it in a way that gets heard. So we like
Yeah.
to say that we're the voice and really the caretaker of the company, not the employees, not the employer, the company. We really service the company, and that's who we hold
Hmm.
ourselves accountable.
Yeah. I love it. A question I have, because I think this can be hard as leaders, is how often are you finding people not receptive to the feedback? Because I don't,
Oh,
even though I may need to hear it, I may need to hear the truth about where I'm at as a leader. Sometimes I don't want to. It's like that hurts. Because I have deficiencies and I have areas to improve, and I don't like to think that I'm screwing things up. So,
I would
do you
say
find that very
I
often? Yeah.
often people pay me and don't listen to me. And as I say to
Hmm.
people, like, listen, once you've paid, you can do whatever you want with it. You can throw it in the trash. You can use it.
Yeah.
I can tell you that we've had several clients that we have let go because we
Hmm.
noticed they were not listening, and therefore we weren't seeing the results. And it's not
Yeah.
fun for us if they're not going to be a case study. So of
Right.
course it's nice to cash the check, but it really isn't
Hmm.
very satisfying if we're not making the company or the people better. So we've had to let lots of clients go over the past 10 years because we knew they weren't listening or they weren't executing against the agreed upon steps that we knew would improve the company. So it's more
Yeah.
often than you would think. And it's not so much that the leader doesn't want to change, it's that the actual steps to change require work and
Hmm.
steps that are not always easy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's something true about inertia. It's if I'm a body motion stays in motion, right? Like, and if I'm on a path, it's easy to just stay on my current path.
Yeah.
And when I change requires me to get off of my path, to exert some force against me in a different direction and to move, and that can be hard. It can be hard in lots of areas of our life, right? Like, it can be hard in our diet and exercise, it can be hard in our relationships, it can be hard in our businesses. But I think the those that are growth minded, we've got a saying around here: do hard things. Like,
Yes.
all of the
Yes.
good stuff comes from
Yes.
hard
Oh,
things, right?
yes.
And
Yes.
so it's like,
Yes.
let's embrace that
Yes.
and move forward. So I think that's really good. And then the other thing I want to highlight is just how you're bringing the truth to the situation. You're doing that in a loving way, in a package that the person can hear, because it can be really hard, to tell your boss the truth, like, hey, you suck at this thing. And you say it in a way that's probably more polite than that, but hey, you're not living up to the standard that we need for us to move forward. And it can also be hard for the I'll say the leader to be transparent with the business, like, hey, we're struggling,
Yes.
because
True.
you start talking about those things, and now the employees are started looking for other jobs. She's like,
True.
man, I don't know if this thing's going to be around for a while. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything to add to that, but I
Sure,
just see that as a value you bring
it's
in what you're doing.
true. It's really true. I mean, like you said, you want the leader to convey confidence. And to be fair, it's kind of the leader's job to convey confidence, right? So you're right. They're not going to walk around the building and say, hey, guys, I need help, or people, we need help. That's fair. At the same time, you ideally, as a leader, you surround yourself with people potentially outside the organization or a consultant like myself, or uh,
Hmm.
even if it's an advisory board, whatever it is, with people that actually are looking at your profit and loss statement, who do understand the inner workings of your industry, of your business, who like I said, sometimes people just sit around with their friends and take advice like, oh, I'm having problems with my cash flow. And someone goes, well, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah. Like, how invested in your business is that person for you to take that advice? So surround yourself. If you're not going to use outside help, right? Then if you are going to ask for help from the outside or the external sources, make sure that people understand the business well enough to be giving you advice.
Yeah, yeah, this is great. So we're talking about, assessing the business and understanding where our deficiencies are. Can we talk about implementation? Like, okay, now I find the areas that I need to start working on. What kind of frameworks do we install to make these things happen? Because that could be,
Yeah.
this goes back to our inertia thing, right? Like we've got to make some changes to start to see results, and we gotta change some things.
Yeah, you identify obviously the problem. Clearly, that's the first step. And then you take the steps to fix that problem, right? There's usually a step one, step two, step three. And then usually that's for us to identify the steps to fix the problem and then hold the people accountable and execute. I always say, like, it's not really that hard. We usually know the problem. Sometimes we don't know what steps it would take to fix. So get help. And then sometimes we might know the steps, but we don't want to do those steps. They might be things in, let's say, they're not in our wheelhouse. So we
Mhm.
resist those things. Oftentimes, I say in sales and business development, someone who's really strong in operations will almost always lean to operations and they don't lean to the sales and business development. So you sort of have to lay out steps like, look, step one, two, three, and four. I know you don't like these tasks, but you need to do these tasks and do them daily,
Mhm.
weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is. And then hold someone accountable to those steps because generally, if you've created the solution with those steps, then it is strictly execution. And if you need someone to hold you accountable, we can do
Yeah.
that or find somebody else that will, or, create a method, whatever it is, but
Yeah.
do the work, right? Do the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm curious if it's okay if we can, because I think about I'm actually do a poor job on the accountability side. I've gotten better at who's responsible for what by when,
Right.
and then I get in my own little lane, and then I look over and I'm like, man, uh, why hasn't this person gotten this thing done? Right? I thought I was clear, and I think there needs to be a process of like regular checkups and
Course,
making sure that we're
cool
we're making
system. It's
progress there. So.
2025. Come on. We have so
Mhm.
many dashboards, CRMs, project managers, Substacks, Slacks. You know what I mean? How many spots? I mean, really, for 2000, soon to be 2026, there isn't an
Mhm.
excuse in terms of a way to track our where we're at. It's whether or
Yeah.
not the leader is implementing some of these systems and tools into their company and then using them. As I say, garbage
Yeah.
data in, garbage data out. A lot of people have a CRM, but if you're not putting, let's say, what the potential dollars for that person is, or you're not putting where the source for that lead came from, you're never going to get the good information on the backside. So we have all
Mhm.
the technology humanly available and beyond. It's whether or not we will use the technology and then use the technology and the, shall we call it the bells and whistles that provide that's
Mhm.
data for us to run the everyday operations and sales and other things,
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah, and I think you make an interesting point. Using the tool is the critical piece, and it
Yes.
can be
Yes.
it can be like a yellow pad,
Yep.
but if it doesn't have to be super complex. We just need to execute and use the tool. Because I see people regularly, and to some level, I get excited about. Oh, hey, here's a cool new software.
Right.
Let's check that out and
Right.
see how it works. And before we know it, we got 17 softwares, and we're not using any of them really
Correct.
effectively. So
Correct.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
No, that's up
good.
to the leader to create those systems and processes in the company. And as you said, hold the people accountable, right? If you as a leader have implemented a new software for, let's say, sales management, right? A new CRM,
Mhm.
and you go in there, and by the way, the CRM is going to have the reports. So it's not a matter of you not being able to go there. But if you're not going in there and looking and getting the visibility that you need, you're obviously probably not going to be holding the people responsible. Next,
Mhm.
it's 6 months have passed by, 7 months, and then how do we go backwards? Right? Then you're like, let's just
Mhm.
come up with a new tool. Let's start a new, like no one wants to go
Yeah.
backwards. It's not fun. But yeah, I mean, we have no excuses. We have so much
Yeah.
technology to do the things we have we have so much available at our
hmm
fingertips nowadays.
Yep. Yep. And I think you're highlighting a really interesting point. We had a very successful client, and they time track everything. They're an IT company, and I'm like, man, how do you get your people to do that? He was like, it's really easy. The first week, if they don't do it, they no longer work here. And I'm like,
Listen, I have that situation with a client as we speak. It's an engineering client, and they have engineers similar to what you're saying.
Mhm.
And so, of course, they're working on some structural project. They're not, they're working 4 hours over here, and like, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's an hour here, it's an hour there. And as you said, you've got to tie in the organizational goals and systems together, right? So exactly what you said. If you're not filling out this, you don't have a place here. You
Yeah.
don't, you simply don't have a place. And then I looked at the owner when he said, yeah, we're having a difficult time getting in. I'm like, no, have you looked at your engineers and told them use it or lose it? Right. I said, because
Right.
they have respect for you. I know this. They'll have
Right.
respect for you. It's, as you just said, sometimes it's not fun to be the leader that has to be the naggy,
Yep.
you're not using our tool. But at the same time, like, it's either you or the business, where I always say, like, it's you or me, pal. It's you or me. And I'm
Yep.
going to always make sure that I'm going to run my business the best way it is I'm not mad at you, right? Not for me,
Yeah.
not for somebody else. The best way so that I'm not mad at you lives and has a legacy beyond, an individual employer, an individual that isn't looking out for the accountability of that company.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. And I think there's also something about being mindful of the number of things we're trying to implement at one time.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen some really interesting data around if I've got one primary objective for the quarter, my likelihood of achieving that organizationally is very, very high. I get to 2 or 3, I think the number comes down. I get to 4 or 5, it's even less. And if it's above 7, it's 0.
It's
Like,
silly.
you just have
That's
too
silly.
much crap to
Or
focus
silly.
on.
I
So
think the biggest companies I worked for the 25, 30 years, the Fortune 100 companies, it was a number. It was one number. We were all shooting for one number, and that was the company number. And each of us had our responsibility. If you were a salesperson in the organization, you were responsible for 33 million of the 300 million, and you delivered. And as he said, the bonuses were tied into that. The incentives were tied into that. So it was very simplistic, like I said, for these larger companies to create a number. We all went for that same number. And then when we were successful, we were all successful. So it really did create a camaraderie. It also, it exposed the people, that were and were not successful. And sometimes there was things out of your control. For instance, I can give you an anecdotal story for years, I was in the consumer products industry, and we were calling on retailers, Walmart, Kmart, Target. And so every year, as you imagine, Kmart throughout the years has seen diminishing numbers. If they are still technically in business, I'm not sure, but they've seen diminishing numbers over the year. And it wasn't fair each year for that account manager to be like, oh, we need you to grow the business 16% this year, when they were going to close 400 stores, right? So there was always, I will say, the big companies were mindful of industry trends, of industry data. They did, as we say, bake that into those forecasts. They try to do a pretty good job of baking in forecast in the environment, forecast in the United States, forecast in supply chain, so that when you did get those goals, they were typically within reach. And then they had stretch goals and things like that. But then from day one on January 1st, everybody was watching those numbers together. And like I said, you kind of got on that bus and hope we all got there at the end. And then if we did, we were rewarded. If we were not, I can tell you one company, there was 35 of us laid off on, November something, because they were going to get before the end of the year, and they were going to make the number whether or not the employees were there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is fascinating. Before we jump back in, I want to take a moment to help you strengthen the financial side of your business. One of the biggest advantages entrepreneurs have is the ability to use the tax code to their benefit, but only if they have a strategy. And that's why we build a simple, powerful place to get started at vitalstrategies.com/tax. If you're ready to cut through the complexity, uncover opportunities you've been missing, and start putting real money back into your pocket with strategies designed to help high-level entrepreneurs, this is your next step. Everything there is built to be practical, actionable, and easy to implement, so you can make smarter decisions faster. Check it out at vitalstrategies.com/tax and start building a tax plan that actually supports the future you're creating. One of the things that I appreciate about your success is you've demonstrated it through a number of different businesses, a number of different industries, from, we'll call it, consulting to manufacturing. So can you walk us through what you see as the foundational truths to running a successful business? And like, okay, these are the things that everybody needs to have. Because a few things that you've highlighted, you talked about the wheel from the 1950s. I'm like,
Yeah.
so many of these principles are not new. It's just like there's some basic blocking and tackling, and if you do it over and over again, you're going to have success, no matter what your business is. So,
Well,
can you walk us through some of those foundational pieces?
I mean, I do have a background that leans more towards sales. So I will certainly
Hmm.
say it takes money to make money. That is a
Yep.
tried and true business 101, shall we call it. You
Yep.
absolutely have to. And there are a lot of creative ways to be investing your money to try, in the business development areas. It's not always just
Yep.
throw your money at an ad or throw your money at a networking group or whatever it may be. It is through return on investment, through careful consideration, through analysis of the dollars and cents that you are spending. And it's constant, constantly measure, constantly have goals, right? So I'm certainly a fan of data, numbers,
Mm.
goals, track what you want to see success in. I think some of that stuff, like that's always going to ring true for any business. Another one that I have been using a lot is you need more inputs than you have outputs. Basic accounting, which lots of
Yeah.
people that start businesses have no clue about basic accounting, right?
Yeah.
More than out, right? And measure that. Look at it. Oftentimes the bookkeeper, the accountant will send over the monthly P&Ls, right? And the cash statements,
Hmm.
balance sheets. Do you think the owner opened that up to look at it? Do you think that they
No.
got on the phone with their bookkeeper to kind of discuss what that looked like and where they could make some
Hmm.
improvements? And the other thing I said to people was like, look on the backside of your P&L. That can be just as profitable as maybe an extra sale. You have to be creative when you're managing your business. You have to look at everywhere you can to be efficient, effective.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. No, I love that, and I couldn't agree more with you in regards to like all business starts with sales.
yeah.
If you don't have some revenue coming in, it doesn't matter what you're
Well,
doing. It doesn't matter how cool your product is. Somebody's got to sell it. Somebody's got to market it. And so I think that's a key point. And then I do love, I've got a couple of friends. They're in the same business. They're different businesses, but they're the same industry. And one knows his numbers upside down and
yeah.
inside out. And he's like, hey, this thing happened and we were down, 30% on top line. And so we made this change and it preserved our bottom line. And it was like, great. And then the other buddy is just running his business blind. He just is like, we create a great product. And I'm like, yeah, but you're losing money,
Right.
like you're working for effectively free. You should stop this and just go get a real job. You'll end up with less stress and more money in your pocket. So the accounting piece is such a critical component. Like you've got to know what is actually happening in your business, and it's really the sort of the dashboard to
What
see,
is? It is
is our business
purpose.
running
I'd say I
effectively.
always tell people a profit and loss statement is really the ghost whisper of a business. And that's how I've
Hmm.
been successful in other industries besides my own. The profit and loss statement does not change by industry, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter whether I am talking to someone in robotics or a pet care facility. At the end of the day, if I see that their payroll is 70% of their sales, it doesn't matter which industry they're in. That's too
Hmm.
much. Okay. What
Right.
I know, there are so many basic principles to accounting, which back to like that operational construction guy is like, oh, I don't like that. But what has also not happened is that no one has taken the time to teach them some of these really basic, fundamental things. Accountants didn't take the time to do this, generally speaking. Bookkeepers, CPAs, they will even tell you, I have spoken to me, it's not technically their job. And that's a shame, but that isn't really their
Hmm.
job to take that P&L each month and talk to the business bank. We could have done X, Y, and Z. And to be frank, I'm not sure they do understand how to look at that P&L in the rhythm of the business, right? Where you're taking
Hmm.
both of those things to have a meaningful conversation. But it is remarkable when you do, as you said, look at those numbers and let it guide your business. Because as you mentioned, your first friend, I guarantee that person doesn't really stay up too late at night to think about what should I do, because that
hmm
person's using the numbers. So therefore the next what should I do is told to him or her
Yeah.
when they're reviewing those numbers. It tells you like, oh, 80% of our business comes from here. Guess what? We should probably spend some money on marketing is on that 80%. We need to know our
Right.
80/20s. We need to know so many things. We need to know our cost parameters, different things like that. Can we be more
hmm
efficient? Work at your business always. Assess your business always. However that is. Bring in outside consultants, have a trusty panel that you trust, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
we always say this, the best athletes in the world, the best CEOs in the world, the leaders of the world, they all have coaches. They all have consultants. They have a lot of people helping them be successful. The
Yeah.
small size business person is probably the one getting left out here who thinks,
hmm
I can do this on my own. This is the American dream. They're pushing
Yeah.
hard. They're sleeping less. They're 5 minutes of
Yeah.
help sometimes goes miles.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you just said there. The most successful in the world have coaches, right?
Correct.
LeBron James in the basketball court has a coach. He's also got
Multiple
people in
coaches,
so many,
multiple
right,
coaches,
so
a
many
health
areas of his
coach,
life. And
a strength coach,
yeah,
a trainer for his
right,
toe. I mean, a food person, a
right.
they are maybe over coach, shall we call it? It doesn't matter.
hmm
If you want to be the
Yeah.
best or if you want to be good, generally
hmm
speaking, the people that are good or the best in their fields do
Yeah.
seek out coaching, consulting, guidance, whatever words
Yeah.
we want to use.
Right. And this leads back to the beginning of our conversation where we were talking about, oftentimes the owner can't see the blind
Yeah.
spots. They can't see the areas they need help. And that's what a coach does. They go, hey, when this thing happens, you're doing this. And here's the video of you doing
Yeah.
that. And we get the same thing with a business coach, right? Like, hey, I'm looking at what's going on here and we're missing a key opportunity, or I can see in your P&L that this thing is happening. And so I think that's such a key point. I think about all the areas of my life that I have coaches. It's like, I've got a business coach. I've got, you know, fitness
Yeah.
coaches. I've paid people to help me with, getting my diet dialed in, golf coaches.
Yeah.
I go to
So
therapy on a regular basis, make sure my headspace is in the right order. So it's like, all of these things are like so important for us to anything that I consider important, marriage counseling, all of these things that are critical. It's like, let's have somebody that can speak into it and help me get
why
better. So,
not? Right? Why not?
mhm,
I mean, that's sort of I mean,
yeah,
I get it. Some people look at it as an additional cost or an essential expense, but ideally you're measuring again the
no,
return on investment. If you're hiring the right
totally.
people to help you, whether, like you said, whether it's a nutritionist, whether it's a trainer, or it's a business
hmm
coach, measure them. Like, make sure they're
Right.
delivering the results too. If they're not,
Right.
move on. But
Yep.
but try,
Right.
like try instead of, like I said, it's really hard to have all the answers yourself. It's really hard.
Totally. Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. And so valuable to have coaches. So
Hole in one.
thinking about what's that?
Do you have a hole in one?
No, I don't. I'd like one,
I got one.
but you got
I
one.
got
Nice.
one.
Good for you.
You said golf.
I
Let me
was,
check.
yeah, I was golf. I was the closest I've been to a hole in one was at the beginning of my golf career. I like, rolled one right by. And then as I've gotten better,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've not gotten as close. So someday, this is great. So I'm thinking about, in the vein of what we're talking about, coaches and that type of thing. I think one thing that often can be neglected is the strategic planning side of the equation. Like, spending a minute thinking about, vision, mission. I feel like starting up there matters because then it starts to, we can keep working our way down. I, can you talk to us how you work with people on the strategic planning side? Because it's like where I see this being so valuable is if it's up to me to carve out the time to do my planning, I'm too busy for that. Where if I pay somebody to show up and be like, okay, we're going to do your planning, I'm like, great,
Of course.
calendar's blocked off and we rock and roll.
How
So
do they
can you walk us
pass?
through a little bit of
Of
that
course,
process?
make people pass. They're usually a little bit more accountable. Usually.
hmm
Listen, this is the bread and butter of what we actually do. I mean, you have to have a plan, like we just said. Then there's usually steps to execute against that plan, and then it's a matter of execution
hmm
and holding people accountable. But in the big companies, we did this every day, every month. And that was revolved around forecasting. We spent so much time around forecasting and making projections and the magic 8 ball, what's going to happen. And that's really the fundamentals of creating a strategic plan for any company. You're traditionally, if you're doing it correctly, and usually September or October of the year before, you're sitting there thinking about variables for the next year, areas for improvement, strategies. Like this year, I want to do some ad spending. I want to do some PPC. I want to do some SEO, whatever it may be, right? So then you sit there and say, like, well, this year we didn't do SEO. In 2026, we are. Okay. What do we reasonably think that that's going to deliver in an increase in sales, right? So you got to guess. You take your magic 8 ball. I think it's going to increase sales 20%. Then you put that in there as a line item and you go for it and you put your money into the SEO and you commit yourself and then you assess it, let's say 30 days and you see no lift. Okay, let's give this another 30 days. Let's see nothing. By 90 days, if you got nothing, abort and go to something else. And generally in your strategic plan, you had 3 to 5 to 6 things you were going to do in that year to increase sales by some X% because we were $1 million company in 2025. We want to be a $4 million company in 2026. You know what that strategic plan is going to show you? How you got from 1 million to 4 million and not in words, in math. We're doing forecasting for all the clients that I have right now. We're literally doing this. Boom, boom, boom. How are we going to get there? Well, we're going to take step, step, step. And then you make the assumption that's going to work until it doesn't. And then you have in plan B, plan C, and plan D. Then it becomes really simple. If you really take the time at the before the year starts to create this plan, then by January you go on autopilot. And then you're really just working and assessing. And if things are working, you're great. Maybe you double down. Things aren't working, then you got to kind of hunker back down, reassess, put in a new plan. But that's really how we always did the Fortune 100s. There was never, I don't know what I'm going to do, or you always had it in the lineup. You always had it in the lineup. And that is a really critical variable of what strategic planning is. Like list the 2 or 3 things you're going to do, have 2 or 3 things as option B's and C's so that you're constantly ready. And then it's just a matter of hit the button. Instead of most leaders, when it's failing, they don't know where to go. And that's the saddest part is because at that moment they are flailing and there isn't a plan in place. And it might be March, right? You're a quarter in. You're really, what we say is if you implement something, you got 90 days till you're going to see anything from that activity. So you're really 6 months into the year from the time you realize it's not working. It is a constant every day. You work it every day. You assess it every day. You look at those numbers. You look at the inputs, the outputs, and see if they're working.
No, that's so good. And it really is starting to tie together all these things we've been talking about. You think about, the systems that we're using and the data that it's kicking out and utilizing those things effectively. Because we've been having some internal conversations, like we've been running some reports. It's like, hey, some of this data is missing and when the data is missing, it's garbage, right? And so we have to put it in correctly on the front end so we can get good outputs on the back end. And it may not be apparent when you're putting it in, like, oh, that thing doesn't matter. But no, it really does. So
I don't know if the energy all matters, but I'm a nerd and I want as much as I possibly can use because I find that it is helpful. And back to what I was saying, it makes me have to think less and follow the data more. And that's usually the road to success.
Absolutely. So I want to shift for just a second because another thing that you do that I think is so valuable and is so hard, but it doesn't sound hard. And that's getting your messaging dialed in. I think telling a unique story simply, clearly is really hard. When you ask somebody, hey, what do you do? And they're a business owner and they can't give you a message, right? Like we create tax strategy for entrepreneurs. Simple, right? But I could say that lots of different ways. So So I think the messaging and your process for developing that is really good. Can you walk us through some of that?
Yeah, we have a tool called the message map, and it is really simple. It's the what, the how, the who, the where, and the why of a company, which is essentially the story, right? That's essentially the story. People buy stories; they are engaged by the stories. So we have a process that in about an hour and a half, we can essentially brand a company or a product or a service, whatever it is. And we go through these, what is it, right? But the most important variable is exactly what you started out with. like we said, I'm not mad at you makes people and companies better. In that, then I have to, when I create the story, I have to find a way to deliver my value proposition and my point of differentiation. So it's not just have a story. In that story, you need to be able to tell how I'm not mad at you makes people and companies better. What systems, what tools, what processes are we going to use? We're 83% faster than other consulting companies. How are you 83% faster? Well, we have a system that we can message map a brand and an hour and a half later have a story versus 6 months later or 90 days later, or sometimes never, right? So we quantify what we do. We generally quantify that time it takes us to do it versus our competitors. And back to any messaging that you're going to put out there, number one, you really do want to have a client. I'm not a big fan of the mission statement. Mission statements get put up on walls and they get read once a year, right? But I am a fan of like what you just said, your tax strategist. I can't remember what we call it the center box, right? The center box, right? That is the center and the start and finish of everything you're ever going to talk about the brand. And then that story gets created. Usually in the why is the most compelling part of the story of the brand as to why do I care about making people and companies better? Well, because I have a lifetime of it. I have 80,000 hours in all these different areas. But more importantly is because I came out this way. And there was a moment in my life that I did not believe, and I had to learn how to believe again. And people come to you and look for help and strength, and you have it. And then, one day right. But it's to make people and companies better because I'm living that life every day of my life. And I believe, as I tell people, I believe strongly in those things that it's a story. So we are able to do that as I get off a tangent because I get very excited about this. It's
I love it.
creating that story. And then more importantly, that everybody in the organization then also tells that same story. So if ever there was a day that I'm not mad at an employee did not start the sentence with, we make people and companies better. Number one, it's up to me to make sure they understand that and they know that and they've been taught that. And number two, that's the only thing that would ever be said about I'm not mad at you. Nothing else. And so you have to be really committed to your story, and the people in the organization have to be as committed to it. And that creates a culture that creates something that, again, is more legacy oriented. And ideally you create a story that's compelling, right? Whatever it may be. And that's really what people are buying that story.
Absolutely. And so I'm marrying our strategic planning with our messaging. And now I think this sort of leads us to sales, right? Like I've got some targets that we've created. I've created a compelling message. Now I need my salespeople to go out there and
just sell
some stuff that aligns with those goals. And so I think sales is a underutilized tool in most businesses. When we look at private equity firms that come into buy firms, businesses, they're generally investing in sales and marketing. They're pumping a ton of money into that because it's they understand the ROI is like off the charts. So let's see what this operation can handle from a new business point of view. So can you talk to us a little bit about sales training and development and how to like bring that along? Because I think that can be challenging. Most of the time it's the entrepreneur out there driving the sales piece, and they either have a sales team or they're frustrated by their sales team. And I think that would be a conversation.
Listen, you simplify this like everything else. It's a numbers game. We're told in sales, we're going to be told 99.5% of the time. So that means, when you are in the sales capacity, you don't get to go shoot after 2 or 3 targets. You need to create as big of a target list as you possibly can. And as I've said today on many of these podcasts, we don't have any excuse for finding targets either because of the technology that we have in our hands. Back 25 years ago, we used to have to get the yellow pages and drive around, maybe our city centers to try to find leads, right? If that was maybe in your industry or whatever it was, you had to do it a lot more manually. Today, we have technology. If you want to find the decision maker for XYZ company, you probably can. Then it's up to grit and fortitude and consistency and numbers. You have to bang enough, bells and whistles to get a yes. So I say to most salespeople, You have to have thick skin. You have to be completely okay with being told no 99%
Mhm.
of your life. And that's the thing that most people in the organization don't necessarily understand about the sales and business development people is, listen, if you're in accounting, not being told no all day long. If you're in,
No.
administration, you're not being told all day long. Generally, as a salesperson, you actually are being told no. Like I said, probably 99% of your day
Mhm.
is hearing a
Yep.
no, a negative, not interested. So it does require thick skin. And it also requires sort of a numbers, right?
Yeah.
I don't really
Yep.
care kind of what happened in the day. The next batter up, I'm going to get on this.
Mhm.
Well, kind of wipe away that last taste in your mouth that wasn't good. And
Yeah.
it's fortitude. It is grit.
Mhm.
It is
Yep.
also, as I've said to people, it's numbers. I
Yep.
think spending a career in sales, I get on a plane and you just exchange what you do, right? What do you do? What do you
Mhm.
do? And I tell
Yeah.
I'm in sales. And oh, I could never do that. And I'd always say to people like, you'd never be able to do that because you said what you just said to me right now, because you just said you'd
Right.
never be able to do that. But the minute you believe you're a salesperson, you are a salesperson. And because
Mhm.
that is just a matter of, I'm going to actively, continually go out there and look for the yeses. And I'm also going to parse out
Yeah.
my opportunities using data, using numbers, using technology, using the tools that we're given and go after it.
Yep.
You can never stop. You can't turn off the sales pipeline. And then, oftentimes you'll see companies that'll do really, really well. And they're like, we're just going to shut down the pipeline for a minute because it's just too much. We can't keep up. Like, no, that's an
No.
operational problem. Go fix your operational problem. Don't shut down the sales pipeline because
Yeah.
if you're ever going to turn it back on, and you'd be surprised. And I bet you've experienced this. You'd be surprised at how many number of companies actually do shut down their sales pipeline when they get
Yeah.
over their head operationally.
Right. And revenue solves all sorts of
Yes, it
problems.
does.
Like,
You can
just
do
keep
yourself.
shoving revenue in there, hire
No,
some more people,
correct.
figure out how to deliver the
Correct.
thing,
Solve
like,
operational problems.
yes.
I mean, that's what
Yep.
if the sales team is choking you, then you go fix the operational team. Don't
Yeah.
mess with your sales because again, you're never know if you'll get those back.
Yeah. Yeah. Sales is hard. And one thing you highlighted that I think is so important is Harvard did a study on the most successful sales organizations, and it wasn't full of amazing salespeople. Now, you have to have the right mindset, but what it was full of was a sales process.
Yep.
They took, a system and a structure, and they installed it, and they said, "You run on this track, right? You go tell 12 people a day, and if you call 11, you're fired. If
Yep.
you call 15, good job, but like no less than 12. And here's what you say every single time." And you just keep like nailing this process and you will have success. And you just find the people that can work in that.
They know that
And some
they
people can't.
crunch
Yep.
those numbers, right? I mean,
Yep.
those organizations had crunched those numbers to know that this is a numbers game. And if we have 12 people making 12 calls per day times 5 days a week times, 365 days a year, they know that at the 0.5% of yeses, that
Mhm.
equates to what they need to account for the 99.5% of the no's. It's also the best visibility tracker for the organization to know that that salesperson is in fact meeting, like, shall we call it the quotas, right? Like, we do need to
Yep.
know that you are in fact making those 12 phone calls a day. The other thing that comes from that is if they will put in the good information, let's say there is a CRM or a sales tracking tool, maybe throughout that day, we were told no 12 times for the same reason. Maybe genuinely there's going to be data in there that tells them the price is too darn high. And so it's for the
Mhm.
company to then aggregate the data and look at some of the things that the sales team might be also like, there might be data in there that tells you it isn't the sales team, it's your
Right.
price, it's your placement, it's your promotion,
Mhm.
it's, all sorts of other variables.
Yeah.
So it's always data. It's always data. And that's the thing. People think salespeople are the most usually extroverted people. And they usually think that, they just, I was never that. I mean, I'm right on the line between extrovert and introvert, right on
Mhm.
the line. I am 51% extroverted, which is usually shocking to people.
Yeah.
But on that other side of it, it is numbers, numbers, numbers. And I really did use them to my advantage. And like you said, I played the game the way it was supposed to be played. And I put in those inputs to know that I'm going to get the output, whether I believe it or not, in terms of what they're saying. Just play the game. You will get the candy.
Yeah.
But you got to play.
Yeah.
You got to play it.
Yep. Yeah. We I love your focus on the numbers, because one of the things that we like to take a look at is there's sort of three different metrics. There's activity, like how much am I doing?
Yep.
How effective am I at
Right.
that activity, right?
Well,
And then what market am I playing in, right? If I'm selling $1,000 widgets, but I could sell $2,000 widgets if I went and talked to these people over here, like, so if I look at any one of those things, I can effectively decide how I'm going to double my sales, right? If I'm making 12 calls and I'm 25% effective, well, if I increase that to 50% effective, like I just, if I learn some sales skills, I don't have to do any more activity. I just get to take advantage of, the activity I'm taking. If I want to double my um, revenue based on activity, cool. I can just go see twice as many
double up
people.
the
That's kind of
calls,
hard,
right? Double
right?
up.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. And then if I want to double my revenue, I can just go talk to a more affluent buyer and go, cool, they're going to buy twice as
Step,
much as
right?
the other
Level
person.
up.
So,
You don't always have to go
yep,
get more.
yep.
Sometimes you go get, like you just said, if I've been selling at that price point of 1,000, I'm looking for the next client that's at maybe 5,000, right? I have to sell 1/5 as much if I sell a client at
Hmm.
5,000. So it isn't always, like you said, it's not always quantity. It's
Hmm.
quality as well. And like you said, you might get 12 no's, but you might also learn that data, or, like let's say there was a pool of 100, set of information, and you found out that plumbers disproportionately were people that were buying your product. You know what you also learned? Go after
Hmm.
plumbers, right? So there's
Right.
subsets of data. It's not just like what you said, the first layer of data. It's okay, who did say yes? Let's look at who said
Hmm.
yes. Is there any subsets of data in there? Is there any? I'm always breaking out subsets and subsets and subsets of data, because
Yeah.
it's usually a little nugget for me to go chase if I'm paying
Hmm.
attention.
Yeah, I love this. Stacey, we've talked about a lot of things. We've
Yeah.
talked about strategy, we've talked about messaging, sales, running a successful business. I think this is so good. I love your domain. I'm not mad at you.com. I think it's wonderful. And you alluded to, like, hey, I'm running a successful business. I'm not mad at you. This is just where we need to go to have success. So
Well,
I think that's great. If people want to, they should go check it out. There's so many resources on your website. It's fantastic. And if you're ready to just like get rolling with Stacey, hit the contact form, fill out your information, and their team will be in touch with you. So this has been great, because when I started thinking about what happens, right? If we don't take action, we've got all of these hidden problems costing us time, money, problems, profit. We're slow decision makers. We've got lost opportunity. When we were talking about the two friends, you're like, I bet the guy that looks at the P&L sleeps well at night,
I
So,
bet he does. I mean, I could be wrong, but
right,
I bet he does.
right. Yep. So that's what success looks like, right? Like I can make faster, clear decisions. I see immediate performance boosts across the team when we've got clarity, and I'm starting to bring these things into the mix. And now what is happening is I'm starting to reap the benefits of being a business owner. I've got more profit, more pipeline growth, more money hitting the bottom line, and I've got peace around it. So I think all of those things are fantastic. And I'm not mad at you.com is just a treasure trove of amazing stuff. And so Stacey, I appreciate all of your time and wisdom. Is there anything else we should be talking about before we wrap up?
I mean, just go for it, right? I mean, I'm not mad at you. Like, I think that that's the same mentality that people have to have with
Hmm.
themselves is, allow grace, go for it, but have a plan, right?
Hmm.
Whatever you're going to do, at
Yep.
least try to have a plan and go forward
Yeah,
and go forward.
absolutely. I love it. There really is no substitute for massive action. Like just go do some
Right.
things. Like have some direction, have a
Yeah.
plan, but like just go
Either
start. So
successful or you have lessons. That's the way I figure. Like
yep,
you either are
yep,
successful, you have lessons. There's really no failure ever.
yeah, I love it. Stacey, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right, thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you found real value in this episode. Something you can take back into your business and put into practice right away. If you did, I'd love for you to share it with someone who could benefit from this conversation. That's how we keep expanding this community of entrepreneurs who are building smarter with intentional wealth. And don't forget, if you're ready to start building out your tax and wealth strategy with clarity and confidence, head over to vitalstrategies.com/tax. Everything we create is built to help you minimize taxes, protect your profits, and accelerate your path to financial freedom. Again, that's vitalstrategies.com/tax to get started. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to leave a review. It helps more entrepreneurs discover the tools and insights that can truly change the trajectory of their business and their life. And remember, you're a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities, driving growth, and making an impact. You're vital to your family, creating abundance in every aspect of life. And you're vital to me because you're committed to growing your wealth, leading with purpose, and creating something truly great. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community of vital entrepreneurs. I appreciate you, and I look forward to having you back here next time on the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help entrepreneurs minimize their taxes, master wealth, and optimize their lives.